Harry Freeman is running for Maryland State Delegate District 31B here in Anne Arundel County. Harry, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on my program and talk a little bit about what you're looking to do if elected.
Of course.
Talk to us about 31B. Where is it? What major cities or towns does it cover?
Yeah, the major points are Pasadena, Glen Burnie, well, small parts of Glen Burnie, Millersville, and Severna Park, and all points in between and around those four major areas.
Gotcha. And you're in Pasadena?
I live in Pasadena, yep,
Okay.
right in the Powhatan Beach area.
Great. So talk to us a little bit about your past. Where were you born? What do you do right now? What inspired you to run for delegate?
All right, well, let's unpack that a
Yeah.
little bit. So I am not a native Marylander, although my son is. He was born here in Annapolis. I was born in Miami, Florida, and I did all my public schooling in Miami. I went to the University of South Florida, which is in Tampa. So up until I was in my mid-20s, I was a Florida boy.
Yeah.
And after joining the military, the Army had me bouncing around the United States. I served overseas in South Korea. And when I came back, my final duty station was here in Maryland over at Fort Meade.
Gotcha.
And it was then I realized, I can go anywhere after my military career is over, but I decided to stay in Maryland and call it home.
How come? What was it about Maryland?
So I've always been driven by politics, and I think I can attribute that to my father, always reading the newspaper, always having the news on, being very opinionated growing up.
Yeah.
I got to hear my father speak about certain things and really agree. He's a Vietnam veteran, he's a public school teacher, he taught special ed. So a lot of the social issues that he faced with his own struggles and his own area of a society, I really got to hear a lot of that going home.
Yeah.
With him. Going to the same high school that he taught at was very interesting for a lot of reasons. But I really got a blue collar, low income families perspective on some of the social issues that hit a lot of Americans. And when it came time for me to call Maryland home, I was like, this is the seat of national government. It's one of the oldest state governments in the country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history here. The people here are kind, they're friendly. We've got mountains, which we don't have in Florida. Mountains to the west, we have the ocean to the east. We're just a train ride away from one of the world cities in New York.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's perfect.
Yeah. So what inspired you to run for delegate? Because obviously you were brought up with your dad teaching and being in Vietnam, which I'm assuming him being in Vietnam kind of inspired you to go into the military as well.
It did.
So where did the delegate idea come in after you retired from the military?
Well, I've always been driven towards politics. I've always been driven towards service. I've always been driven towards volunteering for causes.
Yeah.
And at some point in my life, I guess my telos, if you will, was to go into public service and do the will of the people. And it wasn't until a friend of mine, who probably wants to remain nameless, but he and his wife told me about Megan Simonair's choice to not run for re-election. And that's when this snowball effect happened. It was a little nudge here about, hey, you should look into this.
Yeah.
Did you hear the news? I think you'd be perfect for this. So
Yeah.
after a little bit of thinking, and I finally made the choice to fulfill a very distant promise that I made myself and my parents to give back to my community and serve the people.
So let's talk about your background, your cultural background.
Okay. Yep.
You post a lot of stuff in Spanish and in English on your Facebook page for Harry for Maryland. So
Yep.
Talk to us why Spanish, because it's not often that first off we see Latino running, so it's great. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, in District 31B, again, it is a sub-district, but nowhere in District 31 in the history of this district has there been
An elected Latino.
an elected Hispanic official.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this election could be absolutely historic for that reason. I am of Mexican descent. I'm a Mexican American. Growing up in Miami it's very interesting for those who weren't brought up there. It's a very cultural city. We have people from all different parts of the world, mostly with a Hispanic background. So for many in Miami, English is not the first language. English may not even be the second language.
Yeah.
There's a huge Haitian population, huge Hispanic population, a lot of Europeans, come in. Portuguese is very big over there as well.
But Donald Trump wants us to speak just one language, and that's English.
Unfortunately, but
anyway, continue.
well, I suggest you go back and read that document he swore to defend and protect. So the Constitution, if he is watching this,
Yeah.
I suggest you go back and read that. But growing up in a household where my dad spoke to me in English, my mom spoke to me in Spanish, so I didn't really have a first language. I just had two modes of communication with two different people. And that evolved. I mean, if you wanted to go to the grocery store in Miami, chances were you weren't going to speak English. You wanted to go to a fast food restaurant. You wanted to go to a shopping mall. You wanted to interact with any part of your society in Miami. Chances were you weren't going to be speaking English. With people my age growing up, English was obviously spoken, but growing up throughout my teens, and it was a roll of the dice to know.
Absolutely. It's basically how I live right now.
Exactly.
So, all right,
let's say what and how.
Right, exactly. So let's talk a little bit more about, your campaign promise, or I don't even want to call it a campaign promise, but maybe your platform rather. So what are you really campaigning on? What are your strong issues that you're looking to take to the State House?
So this was a very important part of how I devised my campaign. I don't think there's any civilized society on this planet that can not care about what we teach, not just our children, but how we continue to professionally develop and educate the adult population. So education is huge, and the health and welfare of every single person within your community, whether it's a small town, whether it's a large metropolis, countywide, statewide, nationwide, or globally, the health and welfare of people is one of the most important driving forces of our economy, of how we progress on the frontiers of science, what we do in the classrooms, what we do with every single part that, not to get dramatic, but our species relies on the passage of knowledge from one generation to another, and our health, our livelihood. So education and healthcare were the top two things I could think of.
So let's jump into that then. So education.
Yeah.
What are the problems with Anne Arundel County Public Schools? Obviously, you're going to be representing Anne Arundel County, a sliver of it, right? But I mean, you're going to be a Maryland state delegate, so you're voting on legislation that's going to be representing all of Americans, Americans, not Marylanders. Excuse me. So so education. What is lacking in education in Maryland right now, and what's the solution?
Well, this is another one that I want to unpack, because first I want to make reference to how you posed that question. It was very well done, because although I will be a direct representative of the electorate within my district, the things that we say in Annapolis, the things that we say on the floor of the House of Delegates or in the Senate or in the governor's office, the things everyone says, they matter. The influence that is held and the responsibilities that we undertake with this position that we're all running for is a huge responsibility to the people. And the legislation that's passed isn't just for the people of my district. It will affect.
Not making laws for
100%.
31B. Yeah.
Correct. It affects the entirety of Maryland. So excellent way to pose the question. And when it comes to education, part of my personal upbringing was I grew up in Florida. Like I said earlier in my introduction, I did public schools through preschool all the way through the 12th grade. I went to a state university. But Florida, when I was there, it was ranked in the low 40s. I want to say we were 47 out of 50.
For education.
For education. So it was very difficult. Some may blame it on resources, finances, language barriers that we were discussing earlier. Who knows the reason? But here in Maryland, we had the absolute best public school system in this country for years. And as of recently, we've been slipping.
Yeah.
We don't. Now, it's still good. It is still excellent. We're in the top 5. And out of 50, that is an incredible bench to hold.
Right.
But we can always be better. Even when we were in first, we can still improve on how we educate, what we educate, the resources, how we incentivize the teachers to teach, how we make our students, our children, go to school excited to learn. There are different methods that we could use that will make this an enjoyable experience for everyone, faculty, staff, and student. And those are the things that I want to focus on. a big thing that a lot of candidates say is like, oh well, money's going to be a big thing with education, but throwing money at a problem doesn't fix the problem. There needs to be a plan of action. There needs to be a proper allocation of resources, proper allocation of funds. What are you going to use these funds for? You do a lot of research in local politics. I'm sure you're aware that our school system is underfunded by billions of dollars.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, yesterday I was at the the Caucus of African American Leaders in Annapolis, and everybody was talking about we need funding. So finally, after like 3 or 4 people that I interviewed, I said, if you tell me that funding is the thing that we need for our schools, tell me how you're going to do it. You just said you have a plan, so I'm excited to hear that plan. But I mean, funding, okay, if we have funding, what's the plan? Don't just say we need more money and say that's going to be your answer and that's what you're going to work on when you're in office, because that doesn't help it. How are you going to get the money? What are you going to use the money for? And how is it going to make education better?
Now, when these questions are posed to people, I don't want to hear someone just reiterate the question to me with bullet points of what I asked. Because clearly this matters to me, it matters to you, it matters to your listeners, it matters to your audience, it matters to my neighbors. How is this going to be implemented, and why should people care about this? The why is, like I said earlier, it is crucial for our state, for our communities, for our country, that we continue to pass on knowledge from one generation to another. And how we do that is we need to hold people accountable, whether it's the casino industry and the revenues that they've been generating, whether it's the proper allocation of funds and budgeting. When it comes down to the county level, right now Stuart Pittman has a wonderful, he's the Democratic candidate for county executive. Yeah, he has a well thought out plan of how to properly allocate those funds at the county level. So once the state gives the counties those funds, we need to make sure that our elected officials at the county level are doing the right thing by not just saying, all right, here is X amount of money, go ahead. How is it going to be done? What are the resources that are needed for the students to thrive in the classroom? But not just now, later. What about adult education? Does education just span from pre-K to 12? Because if we invest in just that demographic, which is what, 4 or 5 to 18, we're going to have to wait an entire generation to see the results, to see that come back to help our communities.
Yeah.
Adults need education. Colleges. Are we going to fund community colleges? Are we going to make it free?
What do you think of Larry Hogan making community college free for students?
I think it's great. As a Democratic candidate, I'm not running for Democrats. I'm not running for Republicans. This campaign is for Maryland. I am running for this state. I am running to be the proper voice for the people in my district, and hopefully to reflect the best interests of every single Marylander. I don't care what your political party is. I don't care. I don't care who has the ideas. I care about who has the best ideas and what is right by the people. I don't care if there's a D after your name or an R after your name. If you expect me to vote party line, I'm sorry. If it's a great idea and it works for the best interests of most Marylanders, sure, I'll check that box.
Well, then let me ask you that. It's because a lot of people, they won't vote on certain things because they're taking money from lobbyists or from corporate or from large corporations or from PACs or super PACs. Are you taking money, or are you running a grassroots campaign?
I'm running an absolute grassroots campaign. I am not from Maryland. I have probably the least name recognition in the lot. I am going out there, and I don't care what a program tells me, knock on Democrats' doors. They believe what I believe. If I keep going to these events and I keep seeing the same people, what am I learning? I want to speak to those who don't agree with me, because that's how you learn. If Democrats just talk to Democrats, there is an entire demographic of people, an entire party.
Nothing's going to get done.
People. Exactly. And the same for Republicans. If Republicans only focus on Republicans and they don't want to hear about what Democrats have to say, you're missing out on an entire chunk of your electorate, the people that you have sworn to represent. That makes no sense to me.
It's funny. I mean, I've interviewed quite a few delegate candidates. I've interviewed quite a few Senate candidates and everything in between. And I've never heard anybody except for you say what you just said.
It's important. It's crucial to our democracy. It is crucial to progressing Maryland. Maryland's known as a progressive state.
Yeah.
How? just because Democrats are in charge. I'm a registered Democrat, I'm a Democratic candidate, but if the will of the people isn't being done, then someone's job isn't being done. And that's what I hope to change come November 7th.
Okay, well, let's talk about healthcare now. So that was another big part of that. What are your views? I'm going to keep it nice and simple and kind of let you go off of it. What are your views on healthcare?
Yeah, sorry, I get passionate about these things,
right.
So my answers may start here and end somewhere else. So
right.
I apologize to your audience if you're watching. So healthcare, again, it's vital to our society. It is vital to the civic structure that we depend on, and I can't understand a system that is profitable on if you're healthy or if you're about to die. I can't imagine a system that makes money off of your illnesses, off of you dying. People no longer see empathy, they no longer see a need for innovation in the medical field because they see dollar signs. And that's something that I'm hoping to change by working with the governor's office, with Republicans, with Democrats, healthcare professionals, to help Maryland move towards a single-payer healthcare system.
Is a single-payer healthcare system, there's a lot of business owners that say that that's going to cost them more money. What do you say to that?
Well, I'd ask them how. How is it going to cost you more money?
Yeah.
How? People ask questions that they see on headlines. People ask questions all the time that they hear from someone else. They read it on the internet. Must be true, right? If it's on the internet, it must be true. So any question that's posed to me that I may not have the perfect answer for, I may not have the perfect answer for it. So if someone asks me that question, this is going to cost me a fortune. Well, how? How is it going to cost you a fortune? Educate me. Let me know how this will affect you.
Do you think it will cost businesses a lot?
I don't know. I have no issues saying I don't know. If we plead ignorance, that means there is room to grow. I have to go out and find this answer now because I put it on the record. I don't know if it's going to cost more. I know that what I do know is that between 2013 and 2016, Maryland, through their federal hospital waiver, saved $429 million through the all-payer, through that all-payer waiver. Regardless if you were on private insurance, Medicare or Medicaid, you went to a hospital, you paid a flat rate, no matter what the purpose of the visit was. That is a step in the right direction. Is the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, is that a perfect structure? It's not perfect. Because if you want to talk about business owners and entrepreneurs, the individual healthcare market, the individual health insurance market, the cost of that is impressive, in a bad way. I met at a town hall for Congressman Anthony Brown, Dr. Jeffrey Lapidus, and excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your last name, but he has spent hundreds of hours doing research on these, and he shared the information with me, broke it down by numbers. He has a PhD, he does mathematics and physics. He told me that math is what he does. Working with numbers and investigating solutions to problems is what he does. And with his permission, I posted those findings on my website under the Issues tab under Healthcare. And he goes through a portion where if we just take the individual health insurance market and pull the funds necessary to just match what the general public pays through their larger employers, then it'll only scrape about 1% of Maryland's budget. So there is really no reason why we can't go to a single-payer healthcare program.
Right.
If people say it's impossible, it's never been done, well, I was in the United States Army. I'm a veteran. We have TRICARE. The Army has about 1.2 million service members. Mm-hmm. Just the Army. Obviously there are other branches of the armed services, and there's a system, TRICARE. You go in, you get seen by a doctor, you leave. That's it.
Right. I've heard a lot of things from candidates that are also veterans, and everybody says TRICARE's, modeling that for people like you and me who are citizens now.
Why not? Yeah.
So.
And the same with education. I got my master's degree in management through the post 9/11 GI Bill. I got a master's degree at no cost. I paid for no classes. I received a stipend for books, and I received a housing allowance.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is done for every single service member. So these things are possible. Every single service member who qualifies for it. Now, these things are possible. This vision that we have that things are hard or difficult or crazy, that should be what pushes us to accomplish these things.
Right, definitely. So let's talk about because I like what you said about trying to hear the Republican issues and trying to hear the Democratic issues. So let's talk about something that's really separating people not only in Maryland but all across the country. It's the gun control issue.
Oh yeah.
Right. I personally feel like this, and I've said it multiple times on and off of camera. I think that you have the Democrats that thinks it's the guns problem, and the Republicans who thinks it's it's a psychological problem. I personally think it's both. And I don't see anything that's going to get done at a national level if we cannot come to common ground on that. So what do you think the common ground is for sensible gun laws in Maryland?
Well, there's a lot in what you said. There's a lot. So I'm going to try my best to unpack that again, like some of the other things. And
I don't ask easy questions.
Well, at the root of the question, there is a simple answer to it.
Right.
But the way you're posing these questions adds a lot of nuance, and I want to make sure that I touch on every single thing. So please stop me if I've missed something.
Go ahead.
Because it won't be fair to you or your audience. When it comes to whose fault it is, if there's a gun on the table, it's not going to shoot anyone. I get it. I've heard that before. You leave a gun alone, no one's going to die. If a person picks it up, there's a chance that the gun's going to go off, and a bullet may strike you. It may not. Who knows? But a lot of people on the left, liberals, Democrats, the extreme side of that party, they want to take all guns away. They want a gun-free zone, a gun-free environment, a gun-free state, gun-free nation, and that's the extreme left. The extreme right wants more guns. They want everything possible that you can do with a gun.
Don't tread on me.
Just open. Don't tread on me. Yeah, absolutely. Tea Party, baby. Second Amendment, all the way. Open carry. They want to arm teachers. They want to arm their children. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Right.
I don't believe in any of these things. So where do you find common ground? The same way you'd find common ground in any other situation. Right in the middle. Both extremes are wrong. We will achieve nothing by taking away all the guns. Now, I know Australia had a buyback program that was very successful. We're not Australians.
But do you believe in bringing stuff like that, ideas from other countries, something that Donald Trump doesn't seem like he wants to do, bringing ideas from other countries?
I do, but not this one. Not this one. Not this one. Later on, if there's a certain question about something, I will bring up an example of what another country has done that we should probably hop on. But when it comes to the gun debate, I have no problem with people with guns. There are responsible. They're hunters. There are people that just use them for sport. I mean, I was in the armed services. I fired a weapon every so often myself. I am trained in semi-automatic weapon and weapon systems. Essentially, is there something wrong with guns? No, there isn't. Where are we going to find common ground? Well, we need to look at the federal government. You said they're not going to do anything. I don't understand why not. There should be a universal background check that they can pass at any point. All they have to do is say, should there be a universal background check? Yay or nay? Everyone should agree on that. Yeah, even gun owners say that there should be. There is no harm. If the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, shouldn't we find out who the good guys are?
Makes sense. It definitely does.
Do a background check.
Why do you think that hasn't happened though yet, Harry?
Well,
because there's too many far left and too many far right?
No. Well, a few minutes ago you alluded to money being brought into campaigns, lobbyists.
Yeah.
And I think that is the erosion of our democracy. Having too much money in our political system is positively eroding what we have.
So campaign finance reform, is it something that you're going to support?
Absolutely. I want public low dollar funds so every person has equal say. Let's use super PACs, for example. let's say, well, in Maryland, $6,000 is the most an individual can give to a candidate. If you wanted to give me $6,000,
I don't have $6,000. I'll give him. I'll buy you a cup of coffee after this.
Well, if you wanted to give me $6,000 for a campaign, awesome. That's great. You are legally allowed to do that. That is fantastic. But your money doesn't stop there. Your dollar does not stop there, because you can donate to people that are against my competition. You can donate to PACs that are going to start movements against what my opposition goes for.
Right.
So if you wanted to vote for Larry Hogan again, if you wanted to vote for whoever the Democratic candidate would be, donate to that individual. But you can donate countless through Citizens United. You can donate countless amounts of money, an endless stream of money to those who oppose the candidate you oppose. Is that fair to the person that can only afford to give $10 or not give anything at all?
Right.
Do you think that there's equality in that? Do you think if I look at my campaign donation roster and I'm like, wow, Ann Smith donated $6,000 and Joe Johnson donated $10, where do you think a candidate's focus will go?
To the $6,000.
Absolutely.
Right.
Does Joe not count?
Everybody does.
Everyone does. Everyone should. Everyone does. I don't understand how this is possible, that we haven't evolved socially. We haven't evolved in a manner where we can say, all right, our political system is for the people. How are we allowing this inequity to continue?
Right. Harry Freeman, he is running for Maryland State Delegate District 31B.
31B, yes.
31B. How can people get in contact with your campaign, volunteer, donate, learn more about you? Because we've talked about healthcare, education, gun control, campaign finance reform.
Well, to get back on gun control, I'm sorry if there's you can edit, I'm sure.
Right.
But for gun control, I told you about how we can meet in the middle. I said that the federal government has an obligation to maintain the safety of their constituents to pass universal background checks. But it is a responsibility of the state as well to pass laws too. Now, if I recall, there were about 80 or so in this year's General Assembly. There were about 80 or so bills on the floor relating to guns and the usage and this and that and the other. So there are things being done, but what we can do here is make sure magazine size, ammunition. Maryland has some of the strictest gun laws in the country.
Bump stock ban.
Absolutely.
Already went into effect. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are making progress, and we are making bilateral progress. It's not just the Democrats who are in control of this, making all these decisions. It is both parties working together to make sure that they're keeping the electorate safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with your campaign? How can they donate, volunteer, whatever it may be? Because primaries are right around the corner. Actually, early voting starts Thursday, June 14th. Tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you can find more information about me on www.harryefreeman.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Both handles you can search at Harry4Maryland. It's a numeric 4. And I'd be more than happy to get in touch with you via phone, email. I respond to every single person myself. I read every email that comes through, every Facebook message, every Facebook post. Everything that comes through, I see, I read, and I will respond. On my website, I have a blog through popular demand. People have asked me to go into more detail about some of the things that are happening in our communities. So I've blogged about certain things, from immigration to racism in our area, and all these national issues I tie back to what's going on here in Maryland.
What's going on locally? Yeah.
What's going on locally? Yeah. So I always tie it back to how it affects us or what's going on here.
Right. Yeah. So if people do want to get more information on Harry Freeman and his stances, that was not talked about in this interview. We talked about a couple of very important things, and it's always different each interview that I do. I kind of shuffle it all up. So if people want to learn more about you, they can always visit that blog and comment on Facebook.
Absolutely, yeah. Facebook, my website, and also on Instagram if you want to see pictures of our campaign progress.
His name is Harry Freeman. Again, he's running for Maryland State Delegate District 31B in the Pasadena area. Harry, thank you so much for your time. And if you win, we'd love to have you back on my program to talk about what's going on at the State House.
My time is yours, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Reporting here in Harold Harbor, Joseph Olmo, the Ronald Patriot.